Hi YouTube land, yes, shock, horror, gasp, it is Mr. Piglet, aka John, in the flesh. Yes, this is the first proper video I'm putting out on YouTube for you guys. First of all, thank you for those that have stuck around. I haven't posted much in the last few months, and I will get onto that briefly and why I've done this video. So without further ado, let me just quickly explain why I have decided to pop up this evening. Maybe tomorrow by the time I edit this and put it out. But the last few days there's been a bit of an influx of videos on YouTube, which those of you who really know me know I really do like YouTube for all different reasons. But there's been an influx of videos from some of the more prevalent YouTubers, some of those I've watched for many, many years, 5, 6, 7 years. With the title Spilling the Tea, which I followed suit with this one for that reason. And something I saw this morning based around depression and suicide, especially in men, touched a chord with one or two of those YouTubers on what they were saying and how they felt at certain times. So sitting in this evening, I was thinking about it, and I happened to be watching YouTube, and something came on, and I just thought, you know what? Yeah, let me make a short series of these Spilling the Tea videos. The first one, this one, being a little bit about me, why I haven't posted for a while, and the reasons behind, and hopefully you'll understand by the time I get to the end of the video, which I'll try and keep as short as possible, of why I feel the way I feel and the way it made me feel and why I wanted to make a video. I hope that makes sense. It should all become apparent in the next few minutes. So basically, what's happened is some of these YouTubers have gone through a tough time recently, and they've either not been posting and have tried been dealing with their issues behind the scenes, as most of us do, and obviously it's also their livelihood as well, so they needed to make videos. So a couple of them in particular have just recently made videos that have put their heart on their sleeve. It's a brave thing to do, and have talked about their anxieties and their issues. And then coupled with what I saw this morning, which was a piece of a video that was surfaced on Facebook of a really sort of well-spoken, very nice young man that was raising an issue to a political group on telly recently, talking about depression, anxiety and suicide, especially in men. And here in the UK we currently have a statistic that's averaging approximately 84 men a week are committing suicide because of these issues. And I sort of thought about that for a minute and thought, wow, it doesn't seem like a lot of people when you think there's millions and millions of us in the UK, but over a period of a month, 6 months, a year, that adds up to several thousand people a year, many of whom are, pretty young, late teens, early 20s, 30s and 40s, that are taking their life because they feel that they've come to the end of the road, the end of their tether for whatever reason. And then listening to the vloggers this week, it's quite a slippery slope to be on. And I've decided to put my own one out there today. Some of you out there that know me personally, and there will be a few of you that watch this, I'm sure, will already understand where I'm coming from. You know me, and you know how I feel and I react to certain things when I see them and hear them. But most of you don't. So for those that haven't or don't know me personally, basically I was born in Essex in 1972 to a working class family. I always had a roof over my head, food on the table, clothes to wear. So on that side of it, I was very lucky, and my nan played a massive influence in my life and probably installed the vast majority of all my good points in me and taught me some really good values. On the downside of that, though, when I was around about 5, between 5 and 6, my mum and dad split up, and I found out later in my childhood years that the divorce was not a very amicable one. It made my dad very ill, and he subsequently um, was put on tranquilizers. He started drinking, and for a few years, I didn't really see him as my dad. I didn't see him very often. When I did see him, he was quite often, I wouldn't like to say off with the fairies, but he was not himself. So from about the age of about 6 to about 13, 14, I don't really have a lot of real son and dad memories of any real in-depth knowledge and those that put a smile on my face. Luckily for him, he found some good friends who helped him, and as I got older and understood some of the things that the divorce had done to him, we became closer, and through my late teens and early 20s, we rebuilt most of the bridges that we'd lost for about 10 years earlier on. So that was good. He found himself a new partner later in life, and although I lost him to cancer a few years ago, I'd like to think that the majority of my 20s and 30s, when he was really prevalent in my life, were good times for him as much as they were for me. I've certainly got some good memories. There were some other issues in my life. I won't go into them now, but there were some other things in the background. I said my nan played a big part in my life for different reasons. And she helped me and she looked after me a lot, and my younger brother at times. And I didn't realise at the time, and I don't think many of us do, that when you're in a situation like that, your younger years, especially sort of like your sort of 5 to 10, 5 to 12, that sort of age period, that things that are going on around you will influence you and shape how you feel and how you react and how you are as an older person sometimes, because you absorb it. You hear the arguments, the shouting, other things that go on in family life. You may be lucky and come from a really good family with lots of love. At times I didn't feel I had that, and I didn't notice it at the time, but as I got older I look back and now understand that going into my late teens and early 20s, when I started to form relationships with girlfriends, that I didn't show love correctly at times. I didn't say it enough, and I showed it in the wrong way at times. I had some anger issues. I'm still battling those today. There's still certain things that roll me up, and I have to count to 10 at least once a day. But generally, I'm much better than I was, say, 20 years ago. But that takes time to learn, and you need to have a good structure of friends around you. You need to be strong-willed and obviously have some sort of direction in your life. And skipping about 20 years, or 15 years, let's say, I did go into a very, very long-term relationship with somebody. And in 2002, right at the beginning of that year, I'd started a new job, which was hoping to lead on to a good career. And the reason I changed jobs and looked for a career was because I was going to be a dad for the first time. And within the second month of the year, my son was born, February. And within 6 months, he was dead. He was gone. He was taken away from us. And that changed me massively inside. And again, right at that moment in time, I didn't feel it. I didn't know it. He had a bad heart when he was born. The hospital missed it. I won't go into it too much. And they tried 3 times to operate and correct the issue. And he didn't wake up after the 3rd operation. So just as I got my head around becoming a dad, I was suddenly found I was burying my son. And obviously even harder on his mum. She went through a lot of depression and anxiety and had issues. We broke up for a while. We got back together. and then about 2.5 years later, um, we hadn't been successful on having another child, and the pressure was getting too much for both of us. I was working a lot to try and hide from it, and for her, um, the relationship just slipped away, and she went off with somebody else. And my dad and his partner were very angry about that, but I understood it. I understood it because I was living it, and they were too. They, as grandparents, they were living it as well, but they weren't there every day and didn't know some of the things that were being said and was happening, and how I was feeling, and I didn't share my emotions very well, very much then. Over the next sort of 10, 12 years, I've gone through the roller coaster of emotions from losing a son. I still have days now around his birthday and the time that we lost him that are hard. But as year on year passes, it gets a little easier. It doesn't stop you thinking about them and what happened, but the actual stabbing pain does ease. Um, so that's, obviously a good thing that that's happened. But I've had to do a lot of soul searching, and it's not been easy. And a lot of the time I've had to do that on my own. I haven't been in a committed relationship since he died. There's been short terms and very close possibilities of something developing, but I haven't fully given myself because I didn't feel I'd totally dealt with all of my issues. And I'm sort of kicking myself partly now because I should have just relaxed, let my guard down and just see how things turned out. But those sorts of things, having no family around, my mum lives in another country, we haven't spoken for years, my dad has passed away, my son has gone, I'm no longer with my partner who I was with for close on 7 years. It was difficult. I very rarely talk about it. Those close to me recently are only just finding out some of this, and some of them have been shocked by that. So to hear that this morning from that young lad talking about it on that programme, I 110% wholly want to say well done to him for raising the issue. And also, from my point of view, say, hey, you know what, he's absolutely bang on. We do need to do more for each other as people. You never know what somebody's going through, especially if you only work with them or maybe know them down the pub. Whatever it may be, however they are in your life, if they're not a real close family member or a really close friend, and you don't know about those things that have happened about somebody, they may come to work and they may be someone who's very quiet. They may be someone who's very gregarious. But both sides of that spectrum could be somebody who doesn't interact because they feel very lonely, isolated, and have anxiety, or they're overly bearing and gregarious at times because they're just putting on a front to make themselves look like they're a happy person because they don't want to deal with what they're dealing with in the few hours outside of work, or should I say the few hours they're in work, because it's masking what they're going through, it's taking their mind off of it. But that's a dangerous game in the long run, and something that I have found at my expense, that by not balancing how you deal with shutting yourself away to think about your own issues and deal with them and put them into their boxes so you can work your way through them and sort them at some point, to also being a human being and remembering that you can have a sense of humour, and just because you laughed in the morning to a joke doesn't mean that you don't feel any different about your mum or your dad passing, or your grandma or your son, whoever it may be. It doesn't mean that you don't care about issues that are going on that could be affecting others in your family and you need to help resolve those. It just means that you're being a human being and you shouldn't feel guilty. And I think sometimes, as humans, when we get into that certain level of anxiety and depression, we close down and we forget to do that. And we shut ourselves away, we pretend it doesn't happen. Others think we're okay, and really what we're doing is we're just eating ourselves up. And then tragically, 84 men a week are finding that taking their life is the answer, and it's not. At least for many, many of them, it's not the answer. I'm sure many have slipped through the net and could have been helped and saved and rescued. So that's a little bit about me. This is going to end this video from here. I will do some more shortly in responses to the YouTubers that I've watched. Really just as a little message to them to say that I've listened to them and I've heard them, and you know, I get you and I understand. As I said, if they don't ever see them, they don't ever see them. But hopefully, if anybody out there that watches this or watches any of the others feels down and depressed, and this has sparked them into thinking about some of those issues, then reach out. If not to me, reach out to a friend. Reach out to a loved one. Try something different in your life. Try a different approach to what you're doing or what you're trying. If you feel that it's not working, or you feel that you're getting to the end of any resource you have to solve whatever you're going through. There's hundreds and thousands of people out there that are going through similar things, not always started and ended by the same thing, but our emotional makeup is generally quite the same. Men and women obviously view things slightly differently. I've touched on men tonight because that was prevalent this morning. I've done some other things in the past through support groups, families that have lost children. So I've had some very deep and meaningful conversations with parents like me that have lost a child. So I do understand the dark side of that as well. I'm going to end it here. I am wittering a little bit. Hopefully I haven't depressed you. Hopefully you found out a little bit about me, maybe a little bit interesting. Leave me a comment. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. There may be a few of you that don't like the video. It may not be their cup of tea. It may not be that it's something they relate to, and I get that. So if that's how you feel, then don't give me a thumbs up. Don't leave me a comment. If you do, by all means, make it constructive. If you want to reach out, reach out. I'm going to spend some time this evening doing the responses to the others. I'm going to go back over those videos. Thanks again for all those that have stuck around watching. I really appreciate it. Oh yeah, very quickly, and this is part of the reason why I hadn't posted, just to fill you in, was that end of summer last year I started to do quite a lot of videos. I think I did 11 or 12 videos in a short space of time on film reviews, and I was going to bring some other things into the channel, mix it up a little bit. So there was 4 or 5 different topics. I was even going to start thinking about doing a podcast or 2 as well. However, a couple of little things come along at work, etc., and spoilt that. And then with my own sort of anxieties and issues going on, I sort of let it get on top of me a little bit, and I shut myself away for about 4 months. I look back now and realise it was a silly thing to do. I should have just sort of put a smile on and got on with it. But hey, I'm back, I'm here, I'm talking about it. So hopefully 2019 we can have some real good positives come out of this year. It's looking pretty bleak in certain aspects, politically and other things. Not even going to go down that road. But hey, thanks for listening, guys. Appreciate the time. I know this has gone on a bit. I'll end it now. And all the best to you all. Thank you.